Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. In part 7, we learned that the woman clothed with the sun, which John saw in heaven, is symbolic of the new covenant, which corresponds to Jerusalem above. The sun and the moon denote the glory of these two covenants, old and new. As for the garland of 12 stars, remember, 12 is the number of divine government, suggesting that since the days of Christ and the apostles, we have been under the divine rule of the greater light of the new covenant, which was sealed by the blood of Christ. Regarding stars, we read in Daniel 12:3, "And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever." Might those who are wise and turn many to righteousness not include the 12 apostles? Of course. Being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. This brings us to the following. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Here we see that the woman clothed with the sun gives birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. This male child is caught up to God and to his throne. The first statement clarifies the second, showing that to be caught up to God and to his throne is to be placed in a position of divine rule. In regard to the Lord, here's confirmation. He who overcomes, and he who keeps my deeds until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of the potter are broken to pieces, as I also have received authority from my Father, and I will give him the morning star. Christ reiterates this promise in the message to the seventh church. He who overcomes, I will grant to him to sit down with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. There are two important things to take from these passages. One, Christ was the first to overcome and receive authority from the Father to rule the nations with a rod of iron. Two, there would be others who would overcome and receive this same authority. This tells us that the male child not only speaks of Christ the Lord, but of those who overcome as he did. This explains the following. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and upon the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white garments, and golden crowns on their heads. In agreement with what we read here, Jesus said this to his disciples. Then Peter answered and said to him, "See, we have left all and followed you. Therefore, what shall we have?" So Jesus said to them, "Assuredly I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters, or father or mother or wife or children or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold and inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first." In keeping with our understanding of Christ first, and then others, Jesus tells his 12 disciples that they would sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Note that he also speaks of everyone who makes the ultimate sacrifice to follow him. It is safe to say, then, that the male child of Revelation 12 is both singular and collective, denoting Christ and those who, like Christ, overcome. Our passages in Matthew 19 explain 12 of the thrones, but in Revelation 4:4, we see 24, do we not? Remember, none of these numbers are to be taken literally. 24 is two 12s, denoting the witness of divine government. According to Stephen Jones, 24 is the number of priesthood, which correlates with the following. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Since there are 2 12s to consider, I am inclined to go with the idea that the first 12 represents those who overcame before Christ, while the second represents those who have overcome since Christ. It is therefore not without significance that in the messages to the 7 churches, Jesus finished each message with a promise to the one who overcomes. The subject of the overcomers should be treated with much caution, for Christ alone qualifies those who are. In our next video study, we'll continue our look at the woman, the dragon, and the male son.